The massive space station called Unity's Edge floated in the dark space between three star systems. It was bigger than most moons, with metal walls that stretched for miles in every direction. Today, it housed the most important meeting in galactic history. Commander Alex Stone walked through the long hallways of the station. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. Around him, aliens from 12 different worlds moved with purpose. Some had scales that glittered under the bright lights. Others had wings that folded against their backs. A few glowed with their own inner light. Alex was the only human in sight. He reached the main council chamber and stopped at the entrance. The room was huge, with a dome-shaped ceiling that showed the stars outside. 12 seats formed a circle in the center, each one designed for a different type of alien body. The human seat looked small and simple compared to the others. "Another waste of time," grumbled a voice behind Alex. He turned to see General Corks, of the Vorth people. The reptilian alien stood 8 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. "Humans should not even be here. You have been in space for only 50 years. Alex nodded politely. "We're still learning, General." Corks made a sound like a laugh, but it was not friendly. "Learning, while real civilizations fight and die, you play with your little ships." The general walked past Alex into the chamber. Other delegates were already taking their seats. Alex watched them for a moment before following. Queen Nira of the Krill sat in a chair that looked like a giant flower. Her insect-like body was covered in shining black armor, and her large eyes reflected the room's lights. She was talking to Elder Zane of the Lumens, whose body seemed to be made of pure energy that changed colors as he spoke. "The hive worlds need more space," Queen Nira was saying. Her voice buzzed slightly. "Our eggs number in the billions. We must expand, or our young will die." Elder Zane's light grew brighter. "The Lumens claim the energy-rich sectors by right of spiritual need. We have meditated on these worlds for centuries." "Meditation does not give you ownership," rumbled another voice. This came from Chancellor Rex of the Iron Brotherhood, a race of beings that looked like walking metal statues. "Only strength matters in the galaxy." Alex took his seat and listened as more delegates arrived. Each brought the same message. Their people needed more resources, more space, more power. Each was ready to fight for it. The meeting began when Admiral Kesh of the Star Wanderers called for order. The Star Wanderers were old, maybe the oldest race in the galaxy. Admiral Kesh looked like a tall, thin human, but his skin was silver and his eyes held the wisdom of 1,000 years. "We face the greatest crisis in galactic history," Admiral Kesh said. His voice was calm but serious. "The endless conflict has raged for 300 years. Billions have died. Entire worlds lie in ruins. We must find a solution, or the galaxy will destroy itself." General Corks stood up first. "The solution is simple. The Vorth Empire will lead. Our military is the strongest. Our weapons are the most advanced. Submit to our rule, and there will be peace." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Queen Nira's buzzing grew louder. "The Krill will never bow to reptilian overlords. Our swarms will darken your skies." Elder Zane's light flashed red. "The Lumens reject all claims of material dominance. Only spiritual enlightenment can bring true peace." Chancellor Rex's metal fist hit his chair's arm. "Peace comes from strength, not from glowing meditation." The argument continued for hours. Each race presented their battle plans. The Vorth showed holographic displays of their new planet-killer weapons. The Krill demonstrated swarm attack patterns that could overwhelm any defense. The Lumens spoke of energy beams that could drain the power from entire fleets. Alex listened to it all. He watched the passion in their voices, the fear in their eyes, the desperation in their movements. These beings truly believed that war was the only answer. When the presentations ended, Admiral Kesh asked if anyone else had ideas. The chamber grew quiet. Most delegates looked bored or tired. A few checked their communication devices. Alex stood up slowly. The chamber remained quiet, but now the silence felt different. 12 pairs of alien eyes turned to look at the lone human. Some showed curiosity. Others showed annoyance. "Commander Stone," Admiral Kesh said, "do you have something to share?" Alex looked around the circle of faces. His heart beat faster, but his voice stayed calm. "What if we just stopped fighting?" For a moment, nobody moved. Then General Corks began to laugh. It was a harsh, barking sound. Soon other delegates joined in. Queen Nira's buzzing became a high-pitched trill of amusement. Elder Zane's light flickered with what might have been laughter. "Stopped fighting," General Corks managed to say between laughs. "Human, do you understand anything about the galaxy?" Chancellor Rex's voice boomed through the chamber. "War is the natural order. It is how the strong survive and the weak perish." "Queen Nira leaned forward in her flower chair. "Conflict drives evolution. Without it, species become soft and die." Elder Zane's voice was gentler but still dismissive. "Young human, your species has not lived long enough to understand. Peace is a beautiful dream, but reality is struggle." Alex waited for the laughter to die down. "But what if it doesn't have to be?" "It has always been this way," Admiral Kesh said kindly. "Every civilization in this galaxy grew strong through conflict. We fought our neighbors, conquered new worlds, defended our territories. This is how life works." "Maybe," Alex said. "But maybe there's another way." General Corks stopped laughing. His yellow eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting that humans are different? That you are somehow better than the rest of us?" The chamber grew tense. Alex felt the weight of their stares. "No, General. I'm just wondering if we've all been looking at this wrong." "Wrong." Queen Nira's voice rose. 300 years of warfare and a 50-year-old species thinks we're wrong?" Chancellor Rex stood up, his metal body making grinding sounds. "Perhaps the humans need to learn some harsh lessons about galactic reality." Admiral Kesh raised his hand for silence. "Enough. Commander Stone, we appreciate your optimism, but you must understand that war is not a choice. It is a necessity. Resources are limited. Space is vast, but not infinite. When different needs collide, conflict is inevitable." Alex nodded. "I understand what you're saying, Admiral. I just think there might be options we haven't considered yet." Elder Zane's light dimmed to a soft blue. "What options, young human?" Alex was quiet for a moment. He seemed to be thinking carefully about his words. "I'm not sure yet, but my people would like some time to study the problem," General Corks snorted. "Study while others die? How very human." The meeting continued for several more hours. Plans were made for Operation Final Storm, the largest military campaign in galactic history. Every civilization would contribute ships and soldiers. The goal was to settle all territorial disputes through one massive conflict. As the delegates prepared to leave, Admiral Kesh approached Alex. "Commander, your heart is in the right place, but do not let your hopes blind you to reality. The galaxy is about to enter its darkest period. Prepare your people for what is coming." Alex nodded. "We will, Admiral. Thank you for the warning." As Alex walked back through the station's corridors, he passed groups of alien delegates making final preparations for war. Their voices were excited and determined. They spoke of glory, honor, and victory. None of them noticed the small device that Alex had quietly placed near the communication arrays. It looked like a simple maintenance scanner, the kind that repair crews used every day. Alex boarded his small human ship and set course for Earth. As the stars stretched into lines around him, he activated his secure communication system. "This is Stone," he said. "The Council has made their decision. Operation Final Storm will begin in 6 months." A voice crackled back through space. "Understood, Commander. How did they react to the suggestion?" Alex smiled sadly. "About as expected. They think we're naive children playing at politics." "Good," came the reply. "Let them keep thinking that. How many devices did you manage to place?" 17. All in key communication hubs, just as planned." "Excellent. Return to base, Commander. Phase 2 begins immediately. As his ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, Alex looked back at the space station growing smaller behind him. In 6 months, the galaxy would see the largest war in its history. But if humanity's plan worked, it would also be the last war the galaxy would ever know. The aliens thought humans were weak and naive. Soon, they would learn that there were different kinds of strength, and that sometimes the most powerful weapon was not a weapon at all. The blue marble of Earth hung in space like a jewel. Alex Stone's ship moved through the busy traffic around the planet. Cargo vessels carried supplies to the moon bases. Military ships practiced formations near the asteroid belt. Everything looked normal, but Alex knew that appearances could be deceiving. His ship landed at the Global Defense Headquarters in Geneva. The building was simple compared to the grand structures on alien worlds, but Alex had learned that humans often hid their most important work in ordinary places. President Maria Santos was waiting for him in the underground command center. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but Alex knew she was one of the smartest leaders Earth had ever produced. Around her sat the most important people in human government and military. "Welcome back, Commander," President Santos said. "We watched your report from the ship. The council went exactly as we expected." General Tom Williams, head of Earth Defense Force, leaned forward. "They really laughed when you suggested peace?" Alex nodded. General Corks nearly fell out of his chair. "They think we're children playing with toys." "Good," said Dr. James Carter, Earth's leading expert on alien life. "The longer they underestimate us, the better our chances." Dr. Carter was a thin man with wild hair who always seemed excited about something. Today he looked more excited than usual. He activated a holographic display that showed the 12 alien species from the council. "I've been studying our galactic neighbors for 20 years, Dr. Carter said. Every single species we've met has one thing in common. They all evolved from predator-prey relationships that built aggression into their very nature." The hologram showed a primitive Vorth creature hunting smaller animals. The Vorth come from apex predators. They see every interaction as a fight to be won. The image changed to show ancient krill creatures fighting over territory. The krill evolved from insects that had to compete for limited resources. Expansion and consumption are built into their DNA. More images followed. The lumens started as energy parasites. The Iron Brotherhood developed on a world where only the strongest metals survived. Every species learned that violence was the path to survival. Director Kate Ross from the Science Division raised her hand. "What about humans, Doctor?" Dr. Carter smiled. "That's what makes us special. Yes, we can be violent. Yes, we evolved from hunters. But we also evolved something else. Cooperation. We learned to hunt in groups, to share resources, to care for our weak and wounded." President Santos stood up. "Which brings us to why we're really here." She pressed a button on the table. The walls of the room became transparent, showing a massive elevator shaft that went deep into the earth. Far below, lights twinkled like stars. "Project Harmony," President Santos said. "For the past 20 years, while other species built bigger, guns and faster ships, we've been working on something different." The elevator arrived and the group stepped inside. As they descended, Alex felt his ears pop from the pressure change. The shaft was deeper than most ocean trenches. "We knew this day would come," General Williams said as they dropped through the earth. "The galaxy was always heading toward one final war. We could either join in the killing or find another way." The elevator stopped with a soft thud. The doors opened to reveal something that took Alex's breath away. The underground facility stretched as far as he could see. Thousands of people in white coats worked at gleaming machines. Robots moved supplies along endless conveyor belts. Massive screens showed star maps and alien ship designs. But what caught Alex's attention were the devices. Millions of small silver objects sat in organized rows. Each one was about the size of a human hand and shaped like a six-pointed star. "Welcome to the heart of Project Harmony," President Santos said. "Dr. Foster will explain what you're looking at." Dr. Emma Foster was the project's lead scientist. She was younger than Alex expected, with bright eyes and an eager voice. "Commander Stone, what you see here represents humanity's greatest achievement." She picked up one of the silver devices. "This is a harmony node. It looks simple, but inside is technology that took us 2 decades to develop." Alex examined the device. It felt warm to the touch and seemed to hum with energy. "What does it do?" "It creates what we call an empathy field," Dr. Foster explained. "When activated, it allows any thinking being within its range to feel the emotions and physical sensations of those around them." Alex frowned. "I don't understand." Dr. Foster led him to a demonstration area. 2 volunteers sat in chairs facing each other. Between them sat one of the silver devices. "Watch," Dr. Foster said. She activated the device. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then one volunteer pinched his own arm. The other volunteer jumped and rubbed his arm in the same spot. He felt the pinch even though he wasn't touched, Dr. Foster explained. "Now watch this." She asked the first volunteer to think about his daughter's birthday party. Suddenly, the second volunteer began to smile. Tears came to his eyes. "He's experiencing the same joy and love," Dr. Foster said. "The device doesn't read minds, but it shares emotional experiences." Alex began to understand. So if someone was about to hurt another person, they would feel the victim's fear and pain as if it were their own, Dr. Foster finished. Very few beings can cause suffering when they have to experience it directly. President Santos walked over to a massive wall display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked where battles were currently being fought. "We've run computer simulations thousands of times. When these devices reach critical mass across the galaxy, warfare becomes psychologically impossible." General Williams pointed to crates, being loaded onto transport ships. "We've been secretly placing the devices for months. They're disguised as communication relays and navigation beacons. Every major trade route, every military base, every populated system now has our devices. The aliens think they're routine maintenance equipment," Dr. Carter added with a grin. "We've been hiding them in plain sight." Alex walked through the facility, watching the final preparations. Workers were sealing the last batch of devices into shipping containers marked as Standard Communication Equipment, Earth Manufacturing. "How many devices are we talking about?" Alex asked. 50 million, Dr. Foster said proudly. "Enough to cover every inhabited system in the galaxy." Director Ross showed Alex a timeline on her tablet. "The last shipments go out tomorrow. Installation should be complete 3 days before Operation Final Storm begins." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. What if it doesn't work? What if the aliens figure out what we're doing? President Santos put her hand on his shoulder. "Then humanity will be branded as traitors by every civilization in the galaxy. We'll be hunted down and destroyed." "But if it works," General Williams said, "we end warfare forever." They walked to the Central Command Center where hundreds of technicians monitored the device network. Screens showed green dots spreading across the galaxy as more devices came online. 60% coverage, called out a technician. All systems showing green. Dr. Foster pulled up a psychological profile on her screen. "We've studied every major military leader in the galaxy. Once they experience what their enemies feel, the fear, the pain, the desire to return home to loved ones, they won't be able to continue fighting." Alex thought about General Corks and his harsh laughter. "Some of these beings have been fighting for centuries. Are you sure they'll change?" "Not immediately," Dr. Foster admitted. "But empathy is powerful. Once you truly understand someone else's suffering, it becomes very hard to cause more of it." Captain Lisa Reed approached the group. She was a decorated pilot who had volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission. "The final deployment ships are ready, Mr. President. We can launch on your command." President Santos looked around, the room at the faces of her team. These people had worked in secret for 20 years, knowing they might never get credit for their efforts. "The galaxy sees us as weak," she said. "They think we're too young, too soft, too naive to understand how the universe really works." She paused and looked at the screen showing the spreading network of devices. "Maybe they're right about us being different. But maybe being different is exactly what the galaxy needs." Alex watched as the final transport ships lifted off from hidden launch pads around the world. Each carried thousands of Harmony nodes to complete the network. In 72 hours, every major population center in the galaxy would be covered. "What happens after we activate the system?" Alex asked. Dr. Foster smiled. "Then we find out if humanity's greatest strength, our ability to feel what others feel, can save the galaxy from destroying itself." The room fell quiet except for the humming of computers and the soft beeping of status monitors. Somewhere above them, the stars waited. In 6 months, those stars would witness either the greatest war in galactic history or its final end. Alex looked at the faces around him, scientists, soldiers, leaders who had bet everything on a simple idea. That understanding each other was more powerful than destroying each other. Soon, the entire galaxy would find out if they were right. Captain Lisa Reed stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the stars streak past in lines of light. Her ship was small and fast, built for stealth rather than combat. Behind her, 11 other human vessels followed in perfect formation, through the darkness of space. "Status report," Lisa said to her crew. Lieutenant Ben Davis checked his instruments. "All ships reporting ready, Captain. Harmony nodes are secured and ready for deployment." Lisa nodded. Each ship carried thousands of the silver devices that would complete humanity's secret network. They had been traveling for 3 weeks, moving through empty space between star systems to avoid detection. "Any sign of alien patrols?" Lisa asked. Sergeant Amy Cole monitored the sensor array. "Nothing on scanners, Captain. The galaxy is too busy preparing for war to notice a few small human ships." Lisa smiled grimly. That was exactly what they were counting on. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Operation Final Storm was beginning. The largest military buildup in galactic history was taking shape. Massive fleets gathered at staging points near disputed territories. Weapons that could destroy entire planets were being loaded onto warships. On the Vorth homeworld, General Corks reviewed his battle plans. His reptilian features showed satisfaction as he examined holographic displays of enemy positions. "The Krill swarms will break against our superior firepower," he told his officers. "Their numbers mean nothing when we can vaporize their ships by the thousands." His aide, a younger Vorth named Colonel Dex, pointed to a section of the display. "What about the human forces, General?" General Corks laughed his harsh, barking laugh. "Humans, they have promised 12 ships for the entire campaign. 12. We have 12,000 ships in our reserve fleet alone. Perhaps they are holding back their real forces," Colonel Dex suggested. "No," General Corks said firmly. "They are exactly what they appear to be. Weak newcomers who talk about peace while others do the real work of conquest." Far away, Queen Nira of the Krill was having a similar conversation in her hive palace. The insect queen studied tactical displays showing human ship movements. "The humans are moving small groups through empty space," buzzed one of her advisors. "Their patterns make no military sense." Queen Nira's large eyes reflected the display lights. "They are probably running supply missions. Humans are good at logistics but poor at actual fighting." Neither alien leader suspected that the supply missions were actually humanity's most important military operation ever. Captain Lisa's fleet had reached its first target, the Nexus Station, a massive trading hub that connected 5 major star systems. Ships from dozens of different species docked there every day, making it perfect for humanity's needs. "Take us in slow," Lisa ordered. "We're just another cargo shipment." The Prometheus approached the station's docking bay. Lisa could see the busy traffic around the structure: Vorth military transports, Krill swarm carriers, Lumen energy ships, and dozens of other alien vessels. "Docking control is requesting our manifest," Lieutenant Davis reported. "Send them the standard cover story," Lisa said. "We're delivering communication equipment for the war effort." The lie worked perfectly. Within minutes, the human ships were docked and unloading their cargo. The Harmony nodes looked exactly like the communication relays they were pretending to be. Station workers helped carry them to key locations throughout the structure. 37 devices placed, reported Chief Engineer Mark Webb over the comm system. All locations are optimal for maximum coverage. Lisa watched through security cameras as her team installed the final devices. Each node was designed to integrate seamlessly with existing station systems. To any casual observer, they were routine maintenance upgrades. Good work, Chief. Secure the area and return to the ship. This scene repeated itself across the galaxy. Human teams worked around the clock to install Harmony nodes at every major population center, military base, and transportation hub. The devices were disguised so well that alien technicians often helped with the installation. On the mining world of Titan's Gate, Sergeant Cole's team placed nodes throughout the orbital platforms where Vorth and Krill workers competed for valuable crystals. The two species had been fighting over mining rights for decades. Interesting, observed the Vorth mine supervisor as he watched the humans work. What do these new devices do? They improve communication efficiency during high-stress situations, Sergeant Cole replied smoothly. It was technically true, though not in the way the supervisor understood. At the Lumen Meditation Centers near the galactic core, Dr. Emma Foster herself led a team to install nodes in the energy temples. The Lumen monks welcomed the humans, believing the devices would enhance their spiritual practices. These will help spread harmony throughout the galaxy, Elder Zane told Dr. Foster as they placed a node in the main temple. Dr. Foster smiled. That's exactly what we're hoping for, Elder. The most dangerous installations happened at military bases. Captain Lisa personally led missions to the largest fleet staging areas, where millions of soldiers prepared for the coming war. At the Ebi, Iron Brotherhood Fortress of Steel Mountain, Lisa's team dressed as civilian contractors. They installed nodes in the main command center, while metal soldiers practiced battle formations outside. These humans work efficiently, noted Chancellor Rex as he watched them. Perhaps they have some value as support personnel. Installation complete, Lisa reported quietly into her comm device. Network coverage now at 85%. Back on Earth, President Santos and her team monitored the global operation from the underground command center. Green dots appeared on their galaxy map as each node came online. 90% coverage achieved, announced a technician. All systems showing optimal function. Dr. Carter studied the network patterns. The psychological effect should be immediate. Once we activate, every populated area in the galaxy will be covered. General Williams watched status reports flowing in from field teams. How are our people holding up? Better than expected, President Santos replied. No team has been discovered yet. The aliens really don't pay attention to routine maintenance. Work. Meanwhile, the galaxy's military buildup continued. Admiral Kesh of the Star Wanderers commanded the largest fleet ever assembled, over 1 million warships from 8 different species. The fleet gathered in the Crimson Nebula, preparing for the battle that would decide galactic dominance. Preparations are complete, Admiral Kesh announced to his mixed crew of alien officers. Operation Final Storm begins in 72 hours. The Admiral's aide, a young Star Wanderer named Commander Vale, reviewed the human contribution to the fleet. Sir, the humans have sent their promised 12 ships. They're requesting assignment to supply and communication duties. Admiral Kesh shook his silver head sadly. Give them whatever support role they want. At least they're trying to help, even if they can't fight. What Admiral Kesh didn't know was that those 12 human ships carried the final batch of Harmony nodes. As the massive alien fleet prepared for war, human technicians quietly installed the devices throughout the command ships. Captain Lisa stood in the cargo bay of a Vorth dreadnought, watching her team place the last nodes. Around them, reptilian soldiers loaded weapons that could crack planets in half. Final installation complete, she whispered into her comm. All fleet command ships are now covered. Excellent work, Captain, came President Santos's voice from Earth. Return to safe distance and await activation order. As Lisa's ships moved away from the massive fleet, she looked back at the gathering armada. Millions of beings prepared to kill each other in the name of their species' survival. Most of them were young soldiers who just wanted to return home to their families. In 72 hours, That wish might finally come true. Dr. Foster's voice came over the comm system. Network coverage is now complete. 50 million Harmony nodes are online and ready. Every major population center, military base, and fleet command ship in the galaxy is covered. President Santos took a deep breath. Phase 3 is authorized. All teams return to safe distance. In 72 hours, we either save the galaxy or become the most hated species in it. Lisa looked at her crew. These men and women had risked everything to plant humanity's seeds of peace throughout the stars. Now all they could do was wait and hope that empathy would prove stronger than hatred. The galaxy was about to find out if humans were right about the power of understanding each other. The biggest war in galactic history was about to become something completely different. The Battle of Crimson Nebula was about to begin. Never before had so many warships gathered in one place. The space around the red and purple clouds of the nebula was filled with over 10 million vessels from 8 different alien civilizations. Admiral Kesh stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Star of Unity. Through the massive viewing windows, he could see the greatest military force ever assembled. Vorth dreadnoughts the size of cities floated next to Krill swarm carriers that buzzed with millions of fighter craft. Lumen energy, ships glowed like small stars, while Iron Brotherhood vessels looked like flying fortresses made of pure metal. All fleets report ready for combat, announced Commander Vale. Admiral Kesh nodded his silver head. At over 1,000 years old, he had seen many wars, but nothing like this. Begin the final phase of Operation Final Storm. On Earth, deep underground in the Project Harmony Command Center, President Santos watched the same battle through long-range sensors. Her hand shook slightly as she gripped the activation device. All Harmony nodes show green status, Dr. Foster reported. Network is stable and ready for activation. Dr. Carter monitored the psychological readings from the battle zone. Stress levels are at maximum. Aggression markers are off the charts. If we're going to do this, it has to be now. President Santos looked around the room at her team. These people had worked for 20 years to reach this moment. Are we sure about this? General Williams leaned forward. Madam President, 10 billion beings are about to die in the next few hours. If there's any chance our plan can work. President Santos nodded. She placed her hand on the activation control. May God help us all. She pressed the button. Across the galaxy, 50 million Harmony nodes suddenly came to life. In the battle zone, the effect was immediate but invisible. Energy fields spread out from hidden devices on every ship, station, and platform. The fields, connected and overlapped, creating a web of empathy that covered the entire combat area. Admiral Kane of the Vorth Fleet was about to give the order to fire the first shot when something strange happened. He felt a sudden wave of fear that wasn't his own. Through the empathy field, he was experiencing the emotions of Lieutenant Zeta, a young Krill pilot in a small fighter ship nearby. The pilot was thinking about her eggs back in the hive, wondering if she would ever see them hatch. Admiral Kane stopped speaking. His reptilian features showed confusion as he felt the pilot's terror and desperate love for her unborn children. "Sir?" asked his weapons officer. "Should we begin the attack?" Kane opened his mouth to give the order, then closed it. The young Krill's fear felt as real as his own. Her desire to live, to return home, to protect her family. It was exactly what he felt when he thought of his own scaleslings back on the Vorth homeworld. Across the battle zone, the same thing was happening to millions of soldiers and officers. Queen, Nira felt the homesickness of an Iron Brotherhood soldier who missed his Metal Forge family. General Corks experienced the spiritual anguish of a Lumen warrior who questioned the morality of killing. Commander Vale suddenly understood the desperate hunger of Krill workers fighting over scarce resources. Captain Lisa watched from her small ship at the edge of the battle zone. Her sensors showed something that had never happened before in galactic history. Weapons powering down instead of firing. "It's working," she whispered to her crew. On the Vorth flagship crushing victory, Admiral Kane struggled to understand what was happening to him. The emotions he was feeling weren't his own, but they felt completely real. He looked at his tactical display showing enemy ships, but now, instead of seeing targets to destroy, he saw the beings inside them. He felt their fear, their love for their families, their hope to survive the battle. "Admiral?" his weapons officer asked again. "Your orders, sir?" Kane looked at the firing controls. All he had to do was press one button and thousands of enemy ships would be destroyed. It should have been easy. He had done it countless times before, but now he could feel what those deaths would mean. He experienced the terror of pilots as their ships exploded. He felt the grief of families who would never see their loved ones return home. His clawed hand moved toward the firing button, then stopped. I can't," he said quietly. Similar scenes played out across the massive fleet. Gun crews felt their targets' fear and couldn't pull triggers. Bomber pilots experienced their victims' pain and turned away from attack runs. Ship captains sensed the desperation of enemy crews and found themselves unable to give attack orders. Queen Nira stood in her command chamber, surrounded by tactical displays showing perfect opportunities to destroy enemy vessels. Her advisors buzzed with excitement, ready to begin the Great Swarm attack. But Queen Nira was feeling something she had never experienced before, the protective love that other species felt for their young. Through the empathy field, she connected with a Vorth mother on a distant ship who was fighting to provide territory for her hatchlings. The emotions were exactly the same as what Queen Nira felt for her own eggs. "My queen," buzzed her war advisor. "The enemy fleets are vulnerable. We can crush them now." Queen Nira looked at her advisor with her large, compound eyes. "They're not enemies," she said slowly. "They're just parents, like us." On Earth, Dr. Foster watched the psychological readings with amazement. Aggression levels dropping by 90% across all species. Fear and anger being replaced by curiosity and compassion. The transformation wasn't instant. Some soldiers tried to fight the feelings, telling themselves that empathy was weakness, but the harmony fields were too strong. When someone aimed a weapon at another being, they immediately felt that being's terror and desire to live. Elder Zane of the Lumens had been preparing to drain energy from enemy ships when he suddenly felt their crew's life force as if it were his own. The idea of stealing that energy became as horrifying as the thought of draining his own life away. Chancellor Rex of the Iron Brotherhood experienced the loneliness and fear of organic beings for the first time. He realized that beneath their soft flesh, they felt the same need for belonging and security that drove his own metal people. The battle that was supposed to decide galactic dominance became something completely different. Instead of opening fire, ship commanders began opening communication channels. "Vorth fleet to Krill Swarm," Admiral Kane transmitted. We're reading some kind of energy field. Are your people experiencing unusual sensations?" Queen Nira's voice came back, sounding confused but not hostile. "Yes, Admiral. Our pilots report feeling emotions that aren't their own. What's happening to us?" Similar conversations started across the battlefield. Enemies who had been ready to kill each other moments before now compared notes about the strange experience they were sharing. Dr. Carter, monitoring from Earth, smiled as he watched the communication traffic. They're talking to each other instead of shooting. The empathy fields are breaking down the barriers between species. The most remarkable change happened when repair crews from different fleets began helping each other. A Lumen energy being noticed that an Iron Brotherhood ship had damaged power systems. Instead of seeing an opportunity to attack a weakened enemy, the Lumen felt the crew's fear of dying in space and immediately offered to share energy. Within hours, the greatest battle fleet in galactic history had transformed into the largest relief and rescue operation ever attempted. Captain Lisa received a transmission from Admiral Kesh himself. "Human vessels, this is Fleet Command. We're experiencing some kind of phenomenon. Our crews are finding it impossible to engage in combat. Do you have any information about what's happening?" Lisa looked at her crew and smiled. "Admiral, this is Captain Reed. I think you'll find that your crews haven't lost the ability to fight. They've just discovered the ability to feel what their opponents feel." There was a long silence on the communication channel. Finally, Admiral Kesh's ancient voice came back, filled with wonder. Captain Reed, are you saying that what we're experiencing is empathy? Yes, sir. Complete, total empathy with every thinking being around you. Another long pause. Then, it's remarkable. I can feel the hopes and fears of beings I was ready to kill moments ago. They're just like us. They want to live, to protect their families, to find peace. President Santos listened to the communication from Earth. Tears ran down her face as she realized that humanity's impossible dream was actually working. The galaxy's greatest war had lasted exactly 0 minutes. Instead, it had become the beginning of something entirely new. 1 year had passed since the day that changed everything. The Great War Council chamber aboard Unity's Edge looked completely different now. The same room where alien leaders had once planned massive military campaigns was now filled with charts, showing trade routes, resource-sharing agreements, and joint scientific projects. Commander Alex Stone stood at the center of the transformed chamber, but his title had changed. He was now the first Galactic Harmony Coordinator, a position that didn't exist before humans introduced empathy to the galaxy. Around him sat the same alien leaders who had laughed at his suggestion of peace just 1 year ago. But their attitudes had changed completely. General Corks of the Vorth no longer wore military armor. Instead, he wore simple clothes marked with symbols of the new Galactic Cooperation Council. His reptilian features looked calm and thoughtful instead of aggressive. The territorial disputes in the Outer Rim have been resolved, he reported to the Assembly. The Vorth and Krill have agreed to share the mining rights. Both species will benefit more from cooperation than they ever did from fighting. Queen Nira buzzed softly in agreement. Her insect-like body no longer carried weapons. The hive populations have grown by 40% since we stopped wasting resources on warfare. Our young are healthier and happier than ever before. Elder Zane's energy form glowed with peaceful colors. The Lumens have discovered that sharing spiritual knowledge brings more enlightenment than hoarding it. We have learned much from our new friends. Alex looked around the room with amazement. The same beings who had been ready to destroy each other now worked together like old friends. The change still seemed impossible even after living through it. The question before us today, Alex said, is whether to make the Harmony Network permanent. The devices can be turned off. The choice to keep peace must be yours to make freely. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. When the empathy fields first activated, some critics argued that forcing beings to feel each other's emotions was a form of mind control. Now, after a full year of unprecedented cooperation, the galaxy had to decide its own future. Chancellor Rex of the Iron Brotherhood spoke first. His metal body reflected the chamber's lights as he stood. Before the Harmony Network, my people spent 80% of our resources building weapons and defenses. Now we use those same resources to build homes, schools, and art. Our civilization has advanced more in 1 year than in the previous century. Admiral Kesh nodded his silver head slowly. The Star Wanderers have kept records for over 10,000 years. Never in our history have we seen such rapid progress in science, culture, and quality of life. Dr. Foster, who had traveled from Earth for this historic meeting, presented the statistical evidence. Galaxy-wide, we've seen a 90% reduction in conflicts of all kinds. Not just wars, but crime, domestic violence, even minor disputes. When people can feel each other's pain, they naturally choose kindness. Queen Nira raised one of her clawed arms. But what about our nature? The harmony fields don't change what we are inside. We're still the same species that fought for thousands of years. That's exactly the point, Alex replied. The empathy fields don't control your thoughts or change your personalities. They just let you experience what others experience. The choice to be peaceful comes from your own hearts. General Corks leaned forward. I still remember the moment when I first felt a Krill pilot's fear. It was like discovering I had been colorblind my whole life, and suddenly I could see new colors. The pilot's love for her eggs was exactly the same as my love for my hatchlings. Elder Zane's light brightened. We have learned that consciousness is universal, whether we are made of flesh, metal, or energy. We all share the same basic desires for safety, belonging, and purpose. The debate continued for hours, but it was different from the old war councils. Instead of angry arguments, there were thoughtful discussions. Instead of trying to dominate each other, the leaders genuinely listened to different viewpoints. Finally, Admiral Kesh called for the vote. All in favor of making the Harmony Network permanent? Every hand, claw, tentacle, and energy. Projection rose in agreement. The vote was unanimous. But the real proof of change wasn't in the council chamber. It was happening across the galaxy. On the former battleground of Crimson Nebula, the largest construction project in galactic history was taking place. The same location where 10 million warships had almost destroyed each other was now home to the Galactic Cooperation Center, a massive space station where all species worked together. Captain Lisa Reed, now promoted to admiral, oversaw the construction. Ships from every civilization contributed materials and labor. Vorth engineers worked alongside Krill builders. Lumen energy beings powered the construction, while Iron Brotherhood workers shaped the metal framework. "It's beautiful," said Lieutenant Davis, who had served with Lisa since the early days of Project Harmony. A year ago, this space was filled with weapons. Now it's filled with hope. Lisa smiled as she watched a group of young aliens from different species playing together in the station's recreation area. They were the first generation to grow up with the Harmony Network active. To them, feeling others' emotions was natural, and the idea of warfare seemed as foreign as flying without spaceships. On Earth, President Santos stood in the same underground command center where humanity had planned to save the galaxy. But now, the screen showed something wonderful instead of dangerous. Trade agreements flowed between former enemies. Scientific discoveries were shared freely. Art and culture spread across the stars. "Any regrets?" asked General Williams. President Santos shook her head. "We took the biggest risk in human history. We could have been destroyed for interfering in galactic politics. Instead, we gave the galaxy something it didn't know it needed." Dr. Carter, now the head of the new Galactic Empathy Institute, studied the latest reports. The psychological effects continue to amaze me. Not only have we ended warfare, but we've accelerated cultural and scientific development. When species can truly understand each other, they learn from each other much faster. The changes weren't just political. They were personal. Former enemies had become friends. Vorth families adopted orphaned krill eggs. Lumen energy beings shared their spiritual practices with Iron Brotherhood communities. The galaxy had become one extended family. Alex stood on the observation deck of Unity's Edge, looking out at the stars. A year ago, those same stars had been lit by the fires of war. Now they were connected by trade routes, communication networks, and friendship. "Commander Stone?" Alex turned to see a young human officer approaching. "It's Coordinator Stone now. Lieutenant, what can I do for you?" "Sir, there's a message from the Galactic Memorial Commission. They want to know what inscription to put on the monument at Crimson Nebula." Alex thought for a moment. The memorial would mark the place where warfare ended forever. It needed to capture not just what happened, but what it meant for the future. "Right. This," Alex said. "Here on this day, the galaxy learned that the strongest weapon against war is not a bigger gun, but a bigger heart. No generation will ever forget the day humans completely ended dangerous warfare, not through force, but through the simple act of helping us feel what others feel." The lieutenant wrote down the words carefully. "Should we add anything about humanity's role, sir?" Alex looked back at the stars. Out there, billions of beings from dozens of species were living, working, and playing together in peace. Children were growing up who would never know the fear of war. Scientists were making discoveries that benefited everyone. Artists were creating beauty that brought joy across the galaxy. "No," Alex said finally. "The important thing isn't who ended the war. The important thing is that it ended." As the lieutenant walked away, Alex remained on the observation deck. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: resource distribution, environmental protection, exploration of distant galaxies. But these were problems that could be solved through cooperation instead of conquest. In the distance, a mixed fleet of ships from 8 different species headed toward unexplored space. They weren't going as conquerors or colonizers, but as friends seeking new wonders to share with each other. Alex smiled as he watched them disappear into faster-than-light travel. The galaxy was no longer a place of endless conflict. It had become something humanity had always dreamed of but never dared hope for. A place where understanding conquered hatred, where empathy defeated aggression, and where peace was not just possible, but permanent. The age of warfare was over. The age of harmony had begun, and it would last forever.
Jack Mason floated in the cold emptiness of space, his worn spacesuit keeping him alive as he cut through the twisted metal of an old fighter ship. The only sound was his own breathing and the occasional buzz of his plasma cutter. Far from any planet or moon, Jack was at home among the garbage of the galaxy. "Max, how much oxygen do I have left?" Jack asked, his voice rough from breathing the recycled air. 42 minutes, Jack, replied the calm, slightly mechanical voice of Max, the AI that ran Jack's small collection ship. "I suggest you finish cutting that engine part and return. The Concordat patrol will pass through this sector soon." Jack grunted and worked faster. The Galactic Concordat, the fancy name for the alliance of rich alien species that ran everything, didn't like humans poking around in space junk. But junk was all Jack had. "Got it," he said as the engine piece broke free. It was old but valuable, from a military ship that had been destroyed in a battle 5 years ago. Jack pushed off from the wreck and floated back to his collection vessel, a small, ugly ship he called the Bucket. Inside the Bucket, Jack pulled off his helmet and took a deep breath of the slightly stale air. He was a tall man with a shaggy beard and deep lines on his face, despite being only 35. Life as a space scavenger aged a person fast. "Max, what do you think this piece will get us?" Jack asked, turning the engine part in his hands. A small blue light flickered on the ship's main console as Max processed the question. Max wasn't housed in a fancy robot body or hologram projector like rich people's AIs. He was just a blue light and a voice, saved from a military disposal site 3 years ago. "Based on current market prices, approximately 4,000 credits, Max replied. "However, I must inform you that the Concordat announced new salvage taxes this morning. They have increased by 30%. Jack cursed and slammed his fist against the wall. 30%. That's robbery. They're trying to put guys like me out of business. "That appears to be the intent," Max said. "The official statement claims it is to encourage proper waste management and discourage unauthorized salvage operations." Jack ran his hands through his greasy hair. The Bucket needed repairs, he needed food, and now the taxes would take most of his profits. The big companies could afford the taxes, but independent scavengers like him would starve. "Set course for Outpost 42, Jack said finally. "We'll sell what we have and figure something out." The journey to Outpost 42 took 16 hours. Jack slept fitfully in his small bunk, dreaming of easier times before the war that had left humanity scattered and poor. When he woke, the outpost was visible through the front viewport, a collection of modules and old ships welded together to form a trading hub on the edge of civilized space. After docking, Jack took his salvage to Miko, the outpost's main buyer. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who ran the biggest salvage shop on the station. "Jack Mason," she said when he entered. "Still flying that death trap?" "The Bucket gets me where I need to go," Jack replied, putting his salvage on her counter. "What can you give me for these?" Miko examined each piece carefully, occasionally checking prices on her computer. When she finished, she looked up with a frown. "I can give you 5,200 credits for everything. After the new taxes, you'll take home 3,640. Jack's stomach sank. It wasn't enough. "Come on, Miko. These parts are good. The engine piece alone is worth 4,000. "Was worth 4,000, she corrected. "The market's flooded right now. Everyone's trying to sell before the taxes go higher." She shrugged. "Take it or leave it." Jack took the money. He had no choice. Later, sitting in a corner of the outpost's dingy bar, Jack nursed a cheap drink and tried to think. With the credits he had, he could barely afford the repairs the bucket needed, let alone stock up on food and supplies. "You look like a man with problems," said a rough voice. Jack looked up to see Gus, an old scavenger with one eye and more stories than anyone believed. Gus sat down without being invited. "Just the usual," Jack said. "Not enough money, too many taxes." Gus nodded sagely. "The big boys are squeezing us out. Soon there will be no place for independent operators." He leaned forward. "Unless you find something big. Something they want bad enough to pay real money for." "Like what?" Jack asked, though he knew Gus was probably just talking wild tales again. Gus grinned. "Word is, there's a military graveyard in the Krell Expanse. Ships from the big battle at Sector 7. Untouched." Jack frowned. "The Krell Expanse is restricted space. Concordat patrols everywhere. Exactly why nobody's salvaged it." Gus tapped his nose. "High risk, high reward." After Gus left, Jack returned to the bucket, his mind racing with possibilities. The Krell Expanse was dangerous, but if there really were untouched wrecks there. "Max, what do you know about the Krell Expanse?" Jack asked as he climbed aboard. "The Krell Expanse is a region approximately 2.7 light-years across, currently under Concordat military quarantine," Max replied. "It was the site of the Battle of Sector 7, which resulted in the destruction of approximately 142 ships of various classes." "What's the patrol pattern like?" "According to old data, 6 patrol ships on rotating schedules. However, my information may be outdated." Jack paced the small cabin, thinking hard. Then he stopped and looked at the piles of spare parts he collected over years of scavenging, parts he kept because they might be useful someday. "Max," he said slowly, "what if we didn't sell our next big find? What if we used it instead?" "Please clarify," Max said. "The bucket is falling apart. Repairs cost more every time. But I've got parts. Good parts. What if we built our own ship? Something better, something the Concordat wouldn't recognize." There was a pause as Max processed this idea. "Building an unregistered spacecraft violates 17 Concordat regulations," Max finally said. "Additionally, constructing a functional vessel requires specialized knowledge and equipment." "You are a military AI. You must have ship schematics in your memory," Jack argued. "And I've been fixing ships my whole life." Another pause. "I do retain certain shipbuilding protocols," Max admitted. "However, success probability is low given available resources." Jack smiled for the first time that day. "Low isn't zero, and we're just desperate enough to try." He looked around the cluttered ship. "We'll need more parts. Big ones. That means the Krell Expanse." "The risk is considerable," Max warned. "So is starving," Jack replied. He sat in the pilot's chair and began plotting a course. "We leave in 6 hours. The bucket may not have much time left, but she'll get us there for one last big score." As Jack worked, a new energy filled him. For years, he had simply survived, day to day, scraping by. Now he had a plan, dangerous and probably illegal, but a plan nonetheless. The Concordat wanted to crush people like him with their taxes and rules. They thought humans were just annoying little creatures to be controlled. He would show them how wrong they were. The Krell Expanse stretched before Jack's small ship like a dark ocean filled with floating islands of metal. The remains of the great battle that had happened here 5 years ago still drifted silently in space. Hundreds of broken ships, from small fighters to massive cruisers, formed a graveyard of technology. "Concordat patrol ship detected," Max warned. "Estimated time until visual range, 8 minutes." Jack's hands moved quickly over the controls. "Show me the biggest wreck within range." A moment later, a diagram appeared on the screen. It showed a huge battle cruiser, its middle section blown open, but its engine room and command deck still mostly intact. "Perfect," Jack whispered. He guided the bucket toward the wreck, using smaller pieces of debris for cover. The patrol ship passed by without noticing them, its sensors likely confused by all the metal floating around. When they reached the battle cruiser, Jack put on his spacesuit and prepared to go outside. "I'll try to find the main computer core and any intact drive components," he told Max. "Keep an eye out for patrols." Jack pushed off from his ship and floated toward the dark opening in the cruiser's hull. His helmet light cut through the darkness, revealing a scene frozen in time. The ship had decompressed instantly when it was hit, killing everyone aboard. Their bodies had been removed, but personal items still floated everywhere. Photos, books, toys. "These were people once," Jack said quietly, "not just Concordat soldiers." The Battle of Sector 7 resulted in 23,487 confirmed casualties. Max replied in his ear, 40% were non-combatants. Jack moved deeper into the ship. In the engine room, he found what he was looking for, a mostly intact quantum drive system, far more advanced than anything he could normally get his hands on. It would take multiple trips to salvage everything useful, but this ship alone could provide most of what they needed. Over the next 3 days, Jack worked tirelessly, cutting out valuable components and transporting them back to the bucket. They had several close calls with patrols, but each time they managed to hide among the debris. On the 4th day, as Jack was removing a power relay, Max's voice came urgently through his helmet. "Jack, 2 patrol ships approaching from different directions. They appear to be conducting a coordinated sweep." Jack looked at the half-removed relay. "I need 5 more minutes." "You have 3 at most," Max replied. "After that, escape probability drops below 20%. Working frantically, Jack cut through the last connection and pulled the relay free. He pushed off toward the bucket, the heavy component making his movement slow and awkward. "1 minute, Jack," Max warned. Patrol ships closing. Jack reached the bucket and tumbled inside with the relay. He sealed the airlock as Max was already powering up the engines. "Go, go, go," Jack shouted, not bothering to remove his suit. The bucket lurched forward, weaving through the debris field. Behind them, the patrol ships had noticed the movement and were in pursuit. "They're hailing us," Max said. "Ignore it," Jack replied, strapping himself into the pilot's seat and taking manual control. "Warning shots fired," Max reported. "Hull damage likely if hit." Jack pushed the bucket to its limits, using the debris field for cover. The old ship groaned and shuddered under the strain. "We can't outrun them," Jack muttered. Then he spotted a massive debris cluster ahead, the crushed remains of several ships fused together in a collision. "But maybe we can hide." He cut the main engines and used just the maneuvering thrusters to slide the bucket into a gap in the debris. Then he shut down all systems except life support and Max's core processor. "Play dead," he whispered. Outside, the patrol ships circled the debris field, sweeping it with sensors. Minutes stretched into an hour. Finally, they moved on, continuing their patrol route. Jack let out a long breath. That was close. "Indeed," Max agreed. "However, we have acquired approximately 78% of the components needed for our project." Jack grinned despite his exhaustion. "Let's get out of here while we can." They limped back to a small, abandoned mining asteroid Jack knew about in the outer reach, far from any official outposts or popular salvage areas. Here, they could work without being discovered. The asteroid had been hollowed out by miners long ago, creating a perfect hidden dock for their project. Jack spent weeks sorting through the salvaged parts, organizing them by type and function. Max projected schematics onto the walls, constantly adjusting the design based on the parts they had. "This doesn't make sense," Jack said one day, looking at 2 incompatible power coupling systems, one from a Concordat cruiser, the other from a trading vessel. "These should never connect to each other." "Correct," Max said. "They use different power modulation frequencies." Jack scratched his beard, thinking, What if we use that old frequency converter we found in that luxury yacht? The one rich people use to power their fancy alien tech. Max was silent for a moment, running calculations. Theoretically possible, but highly irregular. The resulting power signature would be unusual. Unusual is good, Jack said. It means they won't recognize it. Day by day, their new ship took shape. It was smaller than a standard cruiser, but larger than the bucket. Its hull was a patchwork of different metals and alloys, with no clear design pattern. Inside, systems that were never meant to work together had been carefully connected with custom adapters and workarounds. The strangest part was the power core. Jack had combined 3 different reactor types: a standard fusion reactor, an alien crystal power matrix, and an experimental quantum fluctuation generator. According to all standard engineering principles, this combination should either not work at all or explode spectacularly. But when they tested it, something unexpected happened. Power level stable, Max reported, surprise evident in his artificial voice. However, the energy signature is unlike anything in my database. Jack looked at the readings. Is it safe? Unknown, Max admitted, but it appears to be functioning at 143% of predicted efficiency. Jack grinned. Let's see what else we can mix and match. As the weeks passed, they discovered more unexpected compatibilities between technologies never meant to work together. Defense systems from 5 different species created shield patterns that shifted randomly. Navigation systems linked to weapons targeting created predictive algorithms that seemed almost precognitive. When they finally installed the makeshift bridge, Jack stood in the center, looking around at his creation. It was ugly, asymmetrical, and violated probably every engineering principle taught in the Concordat. But it was his. We need a name, he said. Max's blue light pulsed on the console. Traditional naming conventions suggest something related to its origin or purpose. Jack ran his hand along the mismatched control panel. The patchwork, he said finally. Because that's what we did. We patched together a future from everyone else's garbage. The patchwork, Max repeated. Name accepted and registered in ship logs. Jack sat in the captain's chair, his eyes bright with anticipation. Let's see if this junk heap can fly. Little did he know that their strange creation would soon change the face of the galaxy. The patchwork drifted out of the asteroid hangar, its mismatched hull plates reflecting starlight in odd patterns. Jack sat in the captain's chair, his hands moving carefully over the controls. Everything felt different from the bucket, more responsive, but also less predictable. All systems functioning within acceptable parameters, Max reported. His presence now filled the ship, with interface points in every section. Though I must note that acceptable is a generous term for some of these readings. Jack laughed. As long as we don't explode, I'm happy. He looked out at the stars through the viewport. Let's take her for a real test. Set course for the Vega trade route. The Vega trade route was busy enough that they could blend in with other traffic, but not so regulated that every ship was stopped and checked. It was perfect for testing how the patchwork performed around other vessels without drawing too much attention. As they approached the route, Jack noticed how smoothly the ship moved. The strange combination of drive systems created a unique propulsion signature that seemed to slip through space more efficiently than standard engines. Max, how's our power consumption? Jack asked. Unexpectedly low, Max replied. The reactor configuration is achieving synergies I cannot fully explain. We are using approximately 40% less fuel than predicted. Jack grinned. That's what happens when you don't follow the rulebook. They joined the trade route, keeping a respectful distance from other ships. For an hour, everything went perfectly. The patchwork handled beautifully, responding to Jack's commands with surprising grace for such an oddly constructed vessel. Then a sharp alarm cut through the calm. 3 ships approaching from Sector 4, Max announced. Configuration suggests pirate vessels. Jack tensed. Are they targeting us? Affirmative. They appear to be jamming standard communication frequencies. Pirates were common in this area. preying on smaller merchant vessels that couldn't afford proper escorts. Usually, they would demand cargo or payment in exchange for safe passage. But the Patchwork carried no cargo, and Jack had no money to give. Evasive maneuvers, Jack said, taking manual control. The pirates were fast, their ships clearly modified for pursuit. They quickly formed a triangle around the Patchwork, trying to force it to stop. "They're hailing us on an open frequency," Max said. Jack nodded. "Put them through." A rough voice filled the bridge. "Unknown vessel, power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Comply, and no one gets hurt." Jack muted the transmission. "Max, what defensive options do we have?" "Our shield system is operational but untested. Weapon systems are minimal. One salvaged pulse cannon with unknown reliability." Jack thought quickly. "If we can't fight, and we can't outrun them, maybe we can confuse them." He looked at the strange power readings from their reactor combination. "Can we create an energy surge through the shields? Something big and flashy?" "Theoretically, yes, but the effect is unpredictable." "Do it," Jack ordered, unmuting the transmission. "This is the Patchwork. We are a salvage vessel. We have nothing of value." The pirate laughed. "Your ship is the value, friend. That's some interesting tech you're running. Our boss will pay well for it, with or without you alive inside." Jack nodded to Max. The AI diverted power from the hybrid reactor system into the cobbled-together shields. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The shield didn't just activate. It pulsed with strange, shifting patterns of energy that spread outward like ripples in water. When the pulse hit the pirates' ships, their systems flickered and died. "What just happened?" Jack asked, staring at the now drifting pirate vessels. "Our shield pulse created some kind of electromagnetic disruption," Max replied, sounding as surprised as an AI could. "It appears to have temporarily disabled their systems." Jack didn't wait to see how temporary the effect was. He pushed the Patchwork to full speed, leaving the pirates behind. News of the encounter spread quickly through the criminal networks of the sector. A strange Patchwork ship that could disable other vessels with some kind of new weapon technology. Descriptions and blurry images passed from one information broker to another, eventually reaching the ears of those with real power. 3 days later, Jack was making minor repairs to the shield generator when Max's voice took on an urgent tone. "Jack, we have a situation. A Concordat military vessel is scanning this region. Their search pattern suggests they are looking for us specifically." Jack dropped his tools. "How?" "We're docked at the backside of a mining moon. We're not even running main power." "Unknown, but their scanner frequencies are specifically modulated to detect our unique power signature." Jack cursed. Someone had sold them out, probably the pirates. "How much time do we have?" "At current search speed, approximately 15 minutes before they detect us." Jack ran to the bridge and began the startup sequence. "We need to leave now." The Patchwork hummed to life, systems coming online one by one. Jack guided the ship away from the moon, keeping its bulk between them and the Concordat vessel for as long as possible. "They've detected us," Max reported as they cleared the moon's shadow. Concordat cruiser changing course to intercept. The Concordat ship was much larger than the Patchwork, a full military cruiser with heavy weapons and a trained crew. It was also much faster than any normal salvage vessel should be. But the Patchwork wasn't normal. "Max, divert all available power to engines," Jack ordered. The ship surged forward, acceleration pushing Jack back in his seat. The strange combination of drive systems created bursts of speed that shouldn't have been possible, allowing them to stay just ahead of the cruiser. "They're hailing us," Max said. "Ignore it. They're charging weapons." Jack spotted an asteroid field ahead. "We can lose them in there." "The asteroid density is too high for safe navigation," Max warned. "For them, maybe." Jack gripped the controls tighter. "But we're smaller and more maneuverable." As they entered the asteroid field, the cruiser fired. Energy beams cut through space, missing the patchwork by meters and hitting an asteroid instead. The large rock shattered, sending fragments spinning in all directions. Jack weaved through the asteroids, using their uneven shapes for cover. Behind them, the cruiser was forced to slow down, its size making it difficult to navigate the field safely. "We're opening the distance," Max reported. Jack allowed himself a small smile that quickly faded. "They'll send more ships, and now we know they can track our power signature." "There is another problem," Max added. "During our escape, I intercepted Concordat communications. The captain of that vessel is Drek, their primary enforcement officer for this sector." Jack had heard of Captain Drek, a ruthless officer known for always catching his targets, no matter how long it took. That's not good. Indeed. Additionally, they referred to our ship as a Class 1 priority asset. They believe we possess breakthrough technology. Jack looked around at the patchwork bridge, with its mismatched parts and jury-rigged systems. "I guess we do, in a way." He sighed. "Set course for the Quantum Nebula. We need to rethink our plans." As the patchwork disappeared deeper into the asteroid field, neither Jack nor Max noticed the strange distortion that briefly appeared in space behind them, a tiny ripple caused by their unconventional drive systems interacting in ways never intended by their original designers. The first micro-wormhole had formed, lasting only milliseconds before collapsing. But it was just the beginning. The Quantum Nebula swirled around the patchwork like a storm of colors. Purple and blue gases turned space into an ocean of light that hid the small ship from searching eyes. Jack sat on the bridge, studying a star chart with tired eyes. It had been 2 weeks since they escaped Captain Drek, and they had been hiding and moving constantly since then. "Fuel reserves at 28%, Max reported. "We need to resupply soon." Jack rubbed his eyes. "I know, but where? Every Concordat outpost will have our signature on file by now." "There is a small trading post on the edge of the nebula," Max suggested, "mostly used by independent miners. Concordat presence is minimal." Jack considered this. "Worth a risk, I guess." Set course. As the patchwork moved through the nebula, Jack noticed something strange on the sensors. "Max, what's that energy reading at 2 o'clock?" "Unknown," Max replied after a moment. "It appears to be a spatial anomaly of some kind." Jack's curiosity got the better of him. "Let's take a closer look." As they approached the anomaly, the ship's systems began acting strangely. Power levels fluctuated, and the navigation console showed impossible readings. "Jack, I recommend we move away," Max warned. "Our drive systems are interacting with the nebula gases in unpredictable ways." Before Jack could respond, a blinding flash filled the bridge. The ship lurched forward as if grabbed by an invisible hand. Jack was thrown from his chair, hitting the deck hard. For a few seconds, everything went dark. When the lights came back on, Jack picked himself up, groaning. "Max, status report." "Calculating," Max said, his voice sounding distant. "Jack, according to our position, we are now 17 light minutes from our previous location." Jack stared at the view screen in disbelief. Outside, the nebula was gone, replaced by open space. "That's impossible. Even at maximum speed, that would take hours." "I am detecting a spatial distortion in our wake," Max reported. "It appears our drive system briefly created a..." "Jack, I believe we generated the micro-wormhole." Jack's mind raced. "You're saying we teleported?" "In layman's terms, yes. The interaction between our hybrid drive system and the nebula's quantum particles created a temporary tunnel through space." Jack fell back into his chair, stunned. "Can we do it again?" "Unknown," Max admitted. "But I have recorded all sensor data from the event." Before they could discuss it further, alarms blared. "Concordat vessels detected," Max announced. 3 cruisers, approaching from different vectors." "How did they find us so quickly?" Jack muttered. "The wormhole collapse released a significant energy burst. They likely detected it." Jack's hands flew over the controls. No time to figure out our new trick. Maximum speed. The Patchwork shot forward, pushing its engines to their limits, but the Concordat ships were closing fast, their military-grade drives easily keeping pace. "They're forming a containment pattern," Max warned. "Escape probability is 17% and falling." Jack's mind worked furiously. The wormhole. It happened when our drive interacted with the nebula gases. He looked at their fuel gauge. "We still have gases from the nebula in our secondary tank, right?" "Affirmative. Approximately 43% capacity." "Route it through the main drive manifold," Jack ordered. "Let's see if we can recreate that interaction." "This is highly dangerous," Max cautioned. "The reaction could be explosive." "Better than being captured," Jack replied grimly. "Do it." Max diverted the nebula gases into the drive system. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship began to vibrate. "Energy buildup in the drive core," Max reported. "Approaching critical levels." Outside, the Concordat ships were almost in weapons range. The lead ship fired a warning shot that passed just over the Patchwork's hull. "Now or never," Jack whispered. Suddenly, space in front of them seemed to fold. A swirling vortex of energy appeared, small but intensely bright. Without hesitation, Jack piloted the Patchwork straight into it. The sensation was like being stretched and compressed at the same time. The bridge flickered around him, solid one moment, and transparent the next. Jack fought to stay conscious as reality itself seemed to bend. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. The Patchwork emerged into open space. On the sensors, there was no sign of the Concordat ships. "Where are we?" Jack asked weakly. "The outer rim," Max replied, sounding as surprised as an AI could. "Over 30 light years from our previous position." Jack let out a shaky laugh that turned into a cough. "It worked. We actually teleported." "Not precisely teleportation," Max corrected. "We created a temporary wormhole that connected 2 points in space. The implications are significant. Significant enough that every power in the galaxy is going to want this technology," Jack said, his expression growing serious. "We need help, Max. We can't stay ahead of everyone forever." Over the next few days, Jack guided the Patchwork to a small, independent space station known as Freeport 7. It was a place where questions weren't asked as long as you had credits to spend. There, he hoped to find crew members who weren't afraid of living outside Concordat law. His first recruit was Tom Bell, a former Concordat engineer who had been blacklisted for questioning the safety protocols that had led to a civilian transport disaster. Tom took one look at the Patchwork's hybrid systems and fell in love. "This shouldn't work," he said, examining the drive core with wide eyes. "But it does. It's beautiful, in a crazy sort of way." Next came Laia Voles, a navigator with illegal sensory implants that allowed her to perceive spatial distortions. The Concordat had banned such technology, claiming it was dangerous, but Laia had found it gave her unmatched navigational abilities. "I can feel the wormholes before they form," she told Jack after her first test run. "With practice, I think I can help predict where they'll open." The final addition to their small crew was Brick, a massive alien from a species called the Grox. The Grox were considered primitive by Concordat standards and restricted from using advanced technology. But Brick had a natural gift for mechanics and had learned by watching others. His enormous strength and 6-fingered hands made him perfect for maintaining the Patchwork's temperamental systems. With a crew of 5, counting Max, the Patchwork became more than just a ship. It became a symbol of resistance. Word spread through underground channels about the strange vessel that could appear and disappear at will, outmaneuvering the mighty Concordat fleet. Captain Drek, humiliated by his failure to capture them, was given additional resources and a clear mandate: find and capture the Patchwork at any cost. "The human and his crew are clever," Drek told his officers, "but they're untrained and undisciplined. They rely on random chance and luck." His cold eyes narrowed. "And luck always runs out." What Drek didn't understand was that humans like Jack didn't just rely on luck. They created their own. And with the Patchwork's unpredictable abilities combined with a crew of outcasts, they were about to become the galaxy's worst nightmare. The Patchwork burst into normal space above a small moon, its mismatched hull gleaming in the light of a distant sun. Inside, Jack and his crew worked with practiced efficiency. 3 months together had turned them from strangers into a family. Wormhole jump complete, Leah announced from the navigation station. Her eyes, with their special implants, glowed softly blue. All spatial distortions stabilized. Engine stress at acceptable levels, Tom added, monitoring the drive systems. That was our smoothest jump yet. Jack nodded with satisfaction. What had once been accidents were now controlled events. They could create wormholes almost at will, appearing and disappearing across the galaxy faster than any Concordat ship could follow. Brick, how's our new shield modification coming? Jack asked. The massive alien looked up from the engineering station. His deep voice rumbled through the bridge. Good. Very good. Shield now absorbs energy from weapons, makes us stronger when they shoot. Jack smiled. Each crew member had contributed improvements to the Patchwork, making it more than just a strange collection of salvaged parts. It was now a truly unique vessel, probably the most advanced ship in the galaxy, though no one would ever guess from looking at its ugly exterior. Max's blue light pulsed on the main console. Incoming transmission, Jack. It's from our contact in the Concordat. Jack raised an eyebrow. They had a few sympathizers within the Concordat, people who saw the corruption and inequality in the system. Put it through, encrypted channel. The woman's voice came through, tense and hurried. Phoenix to Patchwork. You need to know. They've declared you terrorists. Drek has authorization for a galaxy-wide hunt. They're calling you the greatest threat to galactic security in a century. Be careful. The transmission cut off abruptly. Tom let out a low whistle. Terrorists? We haven't even fired on a Concordat ship. We don't have to, Leah said quietly. Our existence is enough. We represent technology they can't control. Jack frowned. Max, bring up the latest Concordat broadcasts. The main screen flickered to life, showing an official Concordat news channel. A serious-looking announcer spoke while images of the Patchwork, blurry and menacing, appeared behind him. The outlaw vessel continues to evade authorities using illegal wormhole technology that experts say could destabilize spacetime itself. Captain Drek of the Enforcement Division has warned all citizens to report any sightings immediately and not to approach this dangerous craft. Jack shut it off, disgusted. They're afraid. And they're using that fear to turn everyone against us. What do we do now? Tom asked. We can't run forever. Jack was silent for a long moment, thinking. Then he looked up, determination in his eyes. We stop running. We fight back, not with weapons, but with the truth. Over the next week, they worked on a bold plan. Tom and Max developed a way to hack into the Concordat's communication network. Leah calculated the perfect positions for multiple short wormhole jumps that would let them broadcast across countless systems simultaneously. Brick reinforced the Patchwork's systems for the strain the plan would put on them. When everything was ready, Jack gathered his crew on the bridge. What we're about to do will put targets on all our backs forever, he said solemnly. If anyone wants to leave, I'll drop you at a safe port with enough credits to disappear. No one moved. We're with you, Tom said. All the way. Jack nodded, touched by their loyalty. Then let's show the galaxy what freedom looks like. The Patchwork began a series of rapid wormhole jumps, appearing briefly near major communication hubs throughout Concordat space. At each location, they broadcast the same message, detailed schematics and operating principles of their hybrid technology, along with video evidence showing how the Patchwork was built from discarded parts. Most importantly, they sent proof that the Concordat had been lying about the dangers of their technology. The wormholes didn't destabilize spacetime. The hybrid systems didn't cause radiation. It was all propaganda designed to keep advanced technology in the hands of the elite. "This is Jack Mason of the Patchwork," Jack said in the broadcast. "We're not terrorists. We're just people who found a way to make something beautiful from what was thrown away. The Concordat doesn't want you to know that their garbage can become your freedom. But now you do. Build your own future. We'll see you among the stars." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across thousands of worlds, people began experimenting with discarded technology. Underground networks shared designs and improvements. Small groups pooled resources to build their own hybrid chips. The Concordats scrambled to stop the spread of information, but it was too late. The message had reached too many people, sparked too much hope. Captain Drek, furious at being outmaneuvered, set a trap. Using information from informants, he positioned a massive battle fleet near the Rigel cluster, where the Patchwork was rumored to be hiding. "This time, they won't escape," Drek told his officers coldly. "We'll capture that ship and make an example of its crew." When the Patchwork emerged from a wormhole near Rigel, the trap was sprung. Dozens of Concordat warships surrounded it. Weapons charge. "Surrender immediately," Drek's voice boomed through the communication system. "There is nowhere to run." Jack looked at his crew, then at the overwhelming force on their screens. He smiled. Who said anything about running? He opened a channel to Drek. "You might want to look around you, Captain." Space rippled and tore as wormholes opened all around the Concordat fleet. From each one emerged a ship, crude and ugly, patched together from salvage and junk, but flying proudly. Dozens of them, then hundreds, appearing from nowhere to surround the surrounders. These were the first ships of the new scrapyard fleet, built by ordinary people inspired by the Patchwork's broadcast. Miners and traders, farmers and teachers, all united by their desire for freedom from Concordat control. "What is this?" Drek demanded, his voice tight with anger and fear. "This is the future," Jack replied simply. "People building their own destinies from what you threw away." The Concordat fleet was powerful, but they were unprepared for hundreds of ships with unpredictable hybrid technology. The battle was brief and decisive. Though no Concordat ships were destroyed, many were disabled by shield pulses and strange weapon effects they had no defense against. Within hours, news of the Concordat's defeat spread throughout the galaxy. More and more junk ships appeared, joining what people were now calling the Patchwork Revolution. 6 months later, Jack stood on the bridge of the Patchwork, watching as representatives from the Concordat signed a treaty with the newly formed Alliance of Independent Systems. The treaty recognized the right of all beings to access and develop technology, ending centuries of Concordat monopoly. "Did you ever imagine it would end like this?" Leia asked, standing beside him. Jack looked at the Patchwork's controls, still ugly, still mismatched, but now the symbol of a new era. "Not exactly," he admitted. "But I always knew that one person's junk could be another person's treasure." He smiled at his crew, his family. "We just had to show everyone else." Outside the viewport, hundreds of Patchwork ships floated in formation, their strange, beautiful forms a testament to what could be built from the things others had discarded. The galaxy would never be the same again.